All right, AMP1 students, in this video we're going to finish talking about organic molecules, macromolecules, and we're going to talk about nucleic acids and ATP. So let me show you in our objectives. So nucleic acids, we're going to talk about their atoms, their two examples, and then the basic function. And then we'll have a little bit more to talk about the difference between RNA and DNA as well. So this is showing this little molecule here. That is it's called a nucleotide. And so you know how amino acids were the building blocks of a protein? Well, nucleotides are the building blocks of nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. So, and so we're going to look at this so you can see all the, excuse me, all the atoms that are present in DNA. So we have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and then phosphate. So those are our atoms that you should be familiar with that are located in DNA. And then the next thing we want to talk about is the two examples. They're DNA and RNA. And I pulled up a picture. The book didn't really have a nice picture to compare the differences. So there is in our list here, 28 is distinguished between DNA and RNA. So kind of know how their number of strands differ, what sugars, how they differ on their sugar, and how their bases differ too. So in this picture, you can see this is RNA, and it has a single strand. And then DNA has two strands, or double-stranded. Down here in the name, you can kind of get an idea of the sugar. So when it says ribonucleic acid, which is what RNA stands for, ribo is referring to the ribose sugar, R-I-B-O-S-E. So that's the sugar that's part of the RNA molecule. And then you'll notice deoxyribonucleic acid is the term for DNA. And so deoxyribose is the sugar that is part of the DNA molecule. And then when it comes to the bases, you'll notice that they both have cytosine and guanine, and they both have adenine. But when it comes to the fourth base, RNA has uracil and the DNA has thymine. So those are our differences, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about the DNA molecule and the RNA molecule when we get to the chapter on cells, because you guys are going to learn about transcription and translation. So how the DNA is going to provide the blueprints for making proteins. So, all right. So that was our nucleic acids, and then the ATP is our last organic macromolecule. So I'm going to go to our textbook because there was a picture. I believe it was underneath here. Yeah, there it is. So here's the picture of ATP. And ATP stands for, it's down here, adenosine triphosphate. So, and you can see the molecule here. So you can kind of look at the atoms and figure out it's got carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and then it's got phosphates. So it's like same ones as the DNA and RNA, just a little bit different organization of them. All right, so when it comes to the ATP, this is the only example. So we do have some molecules of when ATP, it's the storage form of energy in the cells. So that's what its function is to store energy in the cells, and it stores it in these little bonds. So they're energy-rich bonds, and that energy came from breaking down glucose by the cell. So those little high energy bonds, when they get broken, then they'll release a bunch of energy, and that energy can be used to do work in the cell. So if you break that bond and you lose this phosphate, then you got adenosine diphosphate. And then if you break another bond, you lose two phosphates, then you'd have adenosine monophosphate. So we'll talk more about ATP when we talk about what's going on in the mitochondria in the chapter on cells too. So we'll get a little bit more detail about how energy production happens in the cell. So, all right, so I think we're good with this chapter. So I will see you all in the next chapter video.